Hello there, my dear friend. I trust you are doing very fine. Teacher Shadrach here once again in the 10th part of our video series, Demystifying Computer Studies Project Year 2025. I believe you have managed to follow on through those other 9 videos up there. And if you haven't, please, it's advisable you start from video number 1, continue on like that, so that you'll not be wondering how did we ever arrive where we have arrived. These videos are progressive, one step leading to the next, and therefore it's only advisable that you start up there. So roll back, go to part 1 and then part 2 down. You'll still get us here. No worries. In this video number 10, my desire is that today we try to work out the calculations that are to be done in our project. That is calculating the revenue and also the expenses. And if possible, we are going to distribute these amounts as per the project paper, where we find there is that description of how much should go. 50% is allocated to supporting the club's ongoing activities, 30% is allocated to organizing the club's annual parties, and then 20% is saved for the club. I mean, the rest. That's what we have been told there. Then the school supports annual parties or outings by contributing 70% of the amount allocated for the activity or the event. So that is for the annual parties. The school will chip in some 70% of what we have calculated to be the amount that we are going to spend for the party, for the bash. God willing, we shall get there. But just want to call our attention back to the previous video, part 9 of this video series, where we did the query that is appearing on your screen. We called it activities revenue query. And in this query, what we were trying to do is that a club has got a particular activity going, being carried, like now the computer science club. They had coding bootcamp for girls, which was organized for 30th of April 2025. And then the amount spent for the activity was that much. Okay, so the figure of the amount spent is directly entered into a table. In this case, we are not making it a calculated field. It's not. However, if you want to do some calculations, it's up to you. You should know how to maneuver that. Then we learned yesterday how we can use the DSUM function. And that DSUM function is the one which helped us to do these 2 columns. We did that using the DSUM function, which does what? Like now, our imagination is that in coding bootcamp for girls, the computer club members felt like we don't have enough money for the activity, and we need to do some preliminaries or some preparations prior to the event. Before the event comes, we need to do some preparations. So everywhere we share, especially the club members belonging to computer club or anybody in the school, we assume that the club solicited funds from the other school partners, the school parties, especially the students. And from the students, it's like a fundraiser where we were recording what amount that every student has given. And that one we were doing in a table called what? Activity contributions, where a member ID contributes to a particular activity, like now activity number 1, which is coding, bootcamp coding for girls. They contributed. Some of us, member number 1 gave us 500, member ID 2, 250. And then now, the essence of this particular column now is to consolidate those amounts which were contributed towards this event. Code coding bootcamp for girls. Okay, so that gave us a total of 2485, and that was the money which the club now had before the event itself. They had contributed that much. Then come the day of the event, you know, they had invited schools, that's the imagination, participants. And then these participants, probably the schools were supposed to come with 2,000, 3,000 or whatever. And then through that collection, they were able again to consolidate together a sum of revenue of 62,000. So again, that one is coming from revenue TBL. Revenue TBL, you realize coding bootcamp for girls, there are two main contributions, 50,000 and 12,000, and that is what is accumulating to the total of 62,000. So how we managed to get the 62,000 figure here and the 2485 for the sum of contributions is by using DSUM function. You remember it, DSUM function. Okay, very critical, especially when you want to calculate summation of based on particular fields which come from a particular table. You want to bring them together there. So now sum of revenue was the addition of 2485, 62,000, and there again we found we needed to introduce some functions like NZ function, so that in case the Microsoft Access returns a null value, we are able to handle it as a 0 instead of working with null, which cannot be calculated in a query like this. We wanted it to be handled as if it were a 0. So if you have not watched part 9, please go back, because it would take much time for me to explain again how we arrived here. I'm only refreshing our memory. And then we also found a very funny scenario that when again we did revenue, total revenue here initially, and we were saying 2485 plus 62,000, the computer gave us a very funny figure, 248562000, right? So we said, what is it doing? Instead of adding this as numbers to give us the sum, it is concatenating, joining. It is considering, like this is the name John Patrick. John Patrick now brought together. So we saw that there is also need for us to learn how to use the VAL function, which converts something that the computer tries to think of as if it were text. It converts it now to become a number. So that's how we were able to do this. And then now the profit or loss here, where we have a plus, where we have a number without a negative, it means that there was some profit, there was some surplus. We had some surplus money, like this is the balance that we get after we subtract the total revenue collected minus the amount spent for the event. We get a profit of 37,985. However, even the others are still under trial. We are still going to, I'll now be taking some time thereafter and feed data to my program. I believe we do not have sufficient data as yet, but we shall try providing sample data to our programs, to our program, and then we shall see the behavior. So today now, allow me to now bring you on board about how do we handle the scenario of knowing how much each club has collected as a registration fee, how much each club has collected as activities revenue, and the contributions and the like. We bring it together. We bring all these items together. Okay. So far so good, because I realize that I personally have not dealt with a form to register the expenses. Registering expenses, I may not require to complicate it at all. I can just create a tabular form, and down there we are able to enter the expenses incurred by every particular club. So I have selected my expenses TBL, and then from create menu I'm using form wizard so that I can go to selecting all the fields here, and then of course this is a simple task. Next, and then we want it to be tabular, a whole list of records, and then I go next, and then I call it now expenses FRM, expenses FRM. Yeah, if I finish and show you how the organization is, you realize that by default the form is not very appealing, and therefore you might require to do some adjustments just to improve the appearance of the form. For instance, the height of these text boxes, expense narration, you notice that it is quite longer in height compared to the others. So I go to arrange menu, size or space, and then I tell it to shortest. I tell it to size to shortest. Then the other items, you are going to think of what else you can do to make your form become much better than what it is now, because I know in the so many videos we have done, now you know so much about formatting of forms. So expenses recording form. Okay, so I just want to switch to datasheet view. I want to switch to datasheet view, where I'm going to do some trials recording some expenses. The first expense belongs to computer club, and then this is purchase of stationery or buying of stationery. Buying of stationery. We are told we are poor multitaskers. I don't know whether it's true or false. We bought some stationery at 1500, and then let's again put some debate club expenses. Hosting a motivational speaker. A guy was invited by this debate club, and they did pay some money. Then computer club again, they had some purchasing. Purchasing. What did we purchase? Purchasing of printing ink. Something like that. Still an issue. Okay. Plus many other expenses that we shall record by and by. We are just in the preliminary stage of trying our system, whether it works. Now, so of course, with the 2 records in computer studies, I can now be able to know that when I consolidate these expenses, I should be getting 6,000 as the expenses. Now, so that's about what we had not done, and I saved the query. I saved the form. I have already given it a name, and I also require to close even this other query for now. We are going to get into it thereafter. So the query we are going to do now will be kind of to answer the question, how much revenue have we earned in this particular club? So every club is going to appear. And how the club is going to appear is that we are going to have a column for the club name and probably the club details, and then about the revenue they have collected, and so on and so on and so on. Then we are also going to see how we can apply a criteria, for example, to filter records as based on a particular year. So let's follow. I will go to create, and then I will choose Query Wizard. Query Wizard makes me have an easy time, very easy time. So simple Query Wizard, and this time, what table are we choosing? What table? We are choosing a table called clubs, TBL. What table? Clubs, TBL. Whatever you have called yours, you know what you have called yours. So club ID might be okay there. Club name might also be okay. Club category and a club patron. let me not deal with the, or shall we? No, let us not make it too large. I think those fields are quite sufficient, So the query, now we call it revenue collected. Just revenue QRY, revenue main, because I might have some other issues about revenue main query. Okay, so what's the idea here? The idea is that we are going to add columns, one column to show us how much we have gained out of contributions from colleagues, students. Okay, the other one is how much we have gained out of the many activities that we have handled. How much have we also gained? Okay, so we shall be identifying where do we have this information, from what source do we have this information. So follow on. We go slowly together. I believe we shall get to the end together. So there it is. Those are the fields that we have just selected already from the club's TBL. But today now we want to learn how do we add extra calculated columns. And these columns, remember, they are coming from diverse sources. And it will trigger our memory again about the use of DSUM, the val function, VL, and also the NZ function. We are going to use them again because there is something that I'm targeting, that at the end of the exercise we should demystify the usage of the DSUM function and the NZ function and the VL function together. So let's initiate the builder for this new field that we want to create here. Now, we start with the contributions that students have made towards that particular club. Okay, so which table is storing those contributions? Those contributions are stored in a table called activity contribution. But I don't want to have us get a very difficult time when there can be a simpler way of handling this. Like now, why I'm saying that, you look at these columns that I have here in the middle section, which is talking about expression categories. Yes, activity ID is giving us the activity name, and is helping us know the activity name and the like, and then which club, because it's related to the club's TBL. But you look at the column here, we do not have the club ID. So it is going to kind of become a little bit complex for us to maneuver through to get the club ID so that we can know how much did we earn under computer studies. But guys, we are very lucky because part 9 of our video, 9 up there, we have got a query that we did, which consolidates for us the amounts collected for various activities organized by different clubs. You get activities organized by different clubs. So we are going this time not to use the table, but we are going to use the query. So how do we use it? I'm only expanding this area so that we can refresh our memory about how do we work out the DSUM function to do the calculation of how much revenue we collected out of students' contributions. So the query is what I have selected, activities revenue query. You can see the good part of it is that it has got the club ID, therefore it is describing which club is this, and then it has got the sum of contributions. But remember, this sum of contributions are sum of contributions as per a particular club activity, and a club can have about 3 or 4 activities within a year. So we are again going to resum again, because this is the amount that we want to get together for the total sum of the amount of contributed by students in a particular year. So guys, we go DSUM. DSUM is the function, and then what is the name of the field that we are summing up? We are summing up again sum of contributions. I will type throughout in capitals here so that you can be able to visualize. It can be more visible on your end. Sum of contributions. These expressions are not case sensitive. Sum of contributions. I'm taking care of spelling. Sum of contributions, and then close the square bracket, and then closing double quote. So we have started with a double quote, and then the name of the field is within a square bracket. And then where is this information coming from? Which table or which query? The name of the query is actually activities, activities revenue QRY. You realize I don't normally put spaces when I'm naming these items. So I'm typing. Why am I typing in capitals? I'm only typing in capitals for you to see from your end what I'm typing. So I have started with a double quote, and then the name of the query, and then I have closed with a double quote, then a comma. So you can see the DSUM function normally has got three parts: expression, the domain, and the criteria. The expression, the domain, and the criteria. Now, the criteria is about the club ID, where club, we are saying, where club ID is equal to, club ID is a field, so we will enclose it within square brackets, and where club ID is equal to, you put a double quote again, so club ID is equal to double quote, then ampersand is equal to club ID. The club ID that we are using in this query that we are now constructing. Remember, we have already chosen the club ID as we are constructing the current query that we are handling. All right, then I close the bracket. Sometime later, I have paused here because sometime later we are going to prolong this expression, which is the criteria part. We are going to prolong it such that we do take care of which year are we considering. Right now, let me just imagine that we are considering every record that was done within the year 2025. I have my dates actually. I don't know whether I have got dates to do with the 2024, 2020. No, I think all dates are in 2025. So we shall come back here probably later, either in this video or in another, to do accommodate which year are we talking about. But for now, let's just generalize and imagine which club are we talking about, and then say okay. Okay, so this is what this is these ones, let's call them contributions. Okay, then we test. It's always good that before you continue you should always test. So we have some clubs like music and computer club where we have some contributions that have been done. All right, next we go to another column. A brand new column, and now we want to display the revenue from the activity, revenue from any organized activity. So again, go to builder from query design, and again we had already done that in the query that we have just used there before. We want to go to queries so that we identify which field are we going to use. It's called sum of revenue. So who can guess the function to do the calculation of the sum? It is DSUM function. DSUM function. Which field? Open double quotes, open square bracket, and then you say sum of revenue. Sum of revenue, close square bracket, close double quote, put a comma, we go to the domain. Domain is the query name, and the query name is activities revenue QRY. Activities revenue QRY. Don't forget to put that within double quotes. Then put a comma for what? For criteria. Criteria again begins with a double quote, and then we are starting with a square bracket so that we have a field club ID, close square bracket, and then where club ID is equal to double quote, and then ampersand, and then club ID, the club ID that we have around here in the new query that we are designing. So DSUM, sum of revenue, activities revenue QRY, and then where club ID is equal to the current club ID that we are using here. Okay, are we there? If we are there, you say hallelujah. Very good. You know, that's why I love you, because you are a good student. You learn very fast. Okay, so what we call this, we call we may call it activities. These are now consolidated activities. Activities revenue. Try it again, Mwalim. Oh, it was working nicely. Things are just working in your favor. Very good. Then the third item is where now we work out the total amount we spent for the various events that we had which we handled within the year. The events we spent money. So how do we achieve that? Again, carry on. In a new column, go to builder. There we are. In the expression builder window, expand the list so that you see again the queries, and the query of interest is activities query. We are just exposing the items, we are displaying the items under activities revenue query for what? Actually for reminding ourselves the names of the fields. That's the reason why I'm getting back to this query. Otherwise, if our memories were very sharp, we could have just typed the statement, and that could be it. DSUM, what do we do? And I have started with the small letters. Wengine watasema, teacher, we cannot see, teacher, we cannot see. I want you to see clearly. Then we are, after the opening parenthesis, we put a double quote, and then opening square bracket, for which field? Amount spent. Everybody has an amount spent somewhere. Whatever you have called your field, it's up to you. You use the correct name. Then I hope you are following on. Activities revenue QRY. I'm in the domain part, and that is it. Activities revenue query within double quotes, and then another comma for what? For criteria. Criteria must also begin with that double quote, where we are starting with club ID. In other words, we are reading it where club ID, and the club ID must be enclosed within double quotes, and square brackets, and then where club ID is equal to close quote, and then opening parenthesis where club ID is equal to club ID. The club ID I have around in this query that we are now designing. Okay, so like that, and then I say okay, and then what do we call this? Amount spent. This is amount spent on activities themselves. you know, when we organize an event like the bootcamp coding for girls, there is that amount that we shall spend in that particular day, the total amount. So that's the one which we are putting here. So I now want also to include expenses, because within the year, like now, there is that other table called expenses TBL, where we are putting other expenses like stationery, transport, other things which may not necessarily be associated to any particular event. So we want to bring them here, the total expenses incurred within the period we have been in operation. Before later we shall narrow down into the year. So this query, you must be prepared to do a lot of adjustment to it, because later you might require to do some selection based on the particular year you are dealing with. So that is an area which you need to take care of. In case I remember, I will do an illustration of what needs to be done, either here or in another video. So let's go again to another new column, and then we build up there in the design menu, whichever is easier for you. This time round, the expression we are building is based on expenses TBL. Expenses TBL, that's where we are listing all the other types of expenses. So again, our function DSUM, open parentheses, double quote, field that we are summing up is spent amount. Here in the middle column, notice we have spent amount plus square bracket and then quote, then the domain, which is the table we are referring to. In this case, it's expenses TBL. Expenses TBL. This time round, it's not the query, it's the table. And then comma, where again the double quote, where club ID matches with the club ID here. So notice how we have been typing this statement. It's just similar all through. So you just need to pause the video, check how we are typing the statement, and you will not get lost. Anyway, so that's about expenses. Let's check it out. I'll call this one other expenses. Hoping you still remember the essence of renaming the field name generated automatically by the query builder EXPR1. It doesn't make sense to the user, to the consumer of the information. So you need to change that to something that is meaningful to the user. Okay, so we carry on. Expenses. Okay, what else haven't I included there? There is also another source of income. Registration fees is a source of income, isn't it? The registration fees is also another source of income. I believe at a certain place somewhere in a certain video, we were able also to do a registration fee table, and we were able to get the amount. Why I'm getting stuck in my own way of thinking is because again this table does not have club. We only have receipt number, the receipt that we gave the guy, and the membership ID. So it's difficult to tell this person here, which club do they belong to. So I'm wondering whether there is a query that we had constructed to this effect about registration fee. At a certain place, if I'm not wrong, we did this query together. And now this is the query that is going to help us. Remember, why we were doing this query is because of the diversity of the registration fee amount, which is required to be paid by different clubs. Some 200, some 250, and others 300 and environmental club 100. So depending on the category, we saw that there was a need for us to create this query, and therefore we are lucky again that we have a query which merges, or which gets us. Do we have the club ID? Do we have the club ID? Oh, we don't have, but we can just modify this query because I believe you have got this query. Please go to it, registration fees payment query. If you have been following on in all the videos, you have this query somewhere, because it's one of the technical issues that we have in our project paper here. And we have done the calculations of how much each person should pay in the particular club they are joining. So go to it and then switch to design, and then from the memberships TBL, please drop in the club ID. Please drop in within the query a field called club ID from memberships TBL, or you can also drop it from which one? You can also drop it from clubs table, So I prefer you use clubs TBL, but both the fields can work. Whether you drop it from memberships TBL, if you have it like mine, or clubs TBL, it should be able to create a column, a new column there at the end named club ID. And therefore, that query is what we are going to base our argument on, that we want to do now the summation of where club is equal to number 1. We want to do the summation of the registration fee column. So save the query. Don't forget to save the query once you do the adjustment, and you must be remembering its name as we go to the revenue main query. So back to design view, and then in that new column, invoke the expression builder up there. Then function, can you say it now? DSUM. What are you saying? Okay. Then expand the list of items you have in your Victory database. Then go to the branch of queries this time. And then which query? We have already identified it's the reg fee payments query. Why are we coming here? So that we can know how much registration fee we have collected, and the field names, how are they spelled. So open the square bracket, and then the field that I want is down there called registration fee. This is the field we are summing up. Registration fee, close square bracket, close double quote, put a comma, open double quote, and then the name of the query that is getting us this resource is reg fee. Spell it as the way you have spelled it in yours. Payments, QRY, double quote. Then criteria, double quote again, open square bracket, club ID, where club ID, close square bracket, is equal to club ID, not clubboard. Club ID is equal to double quote, and then ampersand, and then club ID we have around here. The club ID we have around here. Okay. That's a registration fee. Then that's an income. Registration fee. We are just renaming that field. Then before I come out of this place, I want to have registration fee probably even becoming the very first column that should be displayed there, so that we have revenue first, revenue columns appearing first, and then the expenses appearing thereafter. So I'm going to drag this column. How you look at the names of the field row on your query builder. Just above it, we have got a very thin layer, which when you point, the mouse pointer looks like a black arrow pointing down. It is used to select the whole of that column. And then now drag the column to position it where you want it to be. I want it to be before contributions. And then I go to datasheet view. Beautiful. So this is the total we have we have gotten in Computer Club. There is 8,500. Debate Club 11,400 for registration only. Okay, because remember, personally I got that, was it 1,300 students and something like that. So that's where we are getting this amount from, and on like that. Then so you can now see that our query is kind of almost complete. Now let's try to do a calculation of, now what is our profit? Our profit will be the total of the registration and then contributions and then activities revenue or revenue collected from activities, the three highlighted columns. Then you minus these two. Okay. So before we do the construction of that, you must remember to save our query, Control S, so that when we go to the query builder or expression builder, when we invoke the expression builder, we should be in a position to see those newly created fields. So the newly created fields are, one, registration fee. So let me start by opening a bracket so that you can see the ones we are adding up and the ones we are to subtract. So we are adding up registration fee plus what? Contributions plus, what is the other one? Activities revenue. Okay, they are normally organized in ascending order. So try to locate where you have placed, where yours will be placed. So those are incomes, money in, pesa ambazo tulipewa zikaingia, isn't it? Now we want to less, to reduce, to minus what? Minus the expenditure. The expenditure is amount spent on activities, and then plus also the other expenses. So in other words, what have we said? This is a kind of a body mass scenario. We are adding up revenue income or all our incomes, then we are subtracting all our expenses. Hoping nobody has a problem in understanding this kind of mathematics. And the computer, we are waiting for it to show us as a solution. We shall be amazed. There will be no solution so far. Why? Because the computer is refusing to show us a solution. Say okay. And we can call it revenue. Revenue. Net revenue. Net revenue. Net revenue. Everybody, net. Can you say again? Net revenue. Now watch the things that will happen here. Okay. This is why I'm laughing, because Microsoft Access, before I got to understand what it does, I had real headaches and I couldn't even understand what happens. Now, we have only learned how to use the DSUM function. The thing you are seeing here, the funny values, you are seeing them simply because the computer in some areas it did concatenation. Like now it concatenated to 8,500, concatenation is actually joining. The way you can join 8,500, joined it to 2985, so you would get what? 8,500, 2985 as one long number. Then joined it to 62,000 and the like. So even how it has gotten the figure that we have on the screen there is still not very clear. But we are the people who have not guided it so well. Anytime you are creating a query and you want a number to be handled as a number, you must tell the computer this is a number by using the VAL value, VAL, let's say VAL function. This video is quite long. Don't get tired. Don't get tired. It's like our climax. It's like do we call it epitome or whatever we call it, climax video. And if you are able to do it, then you realize that your task ahead becomes very, very easy for you. So I'm going to the fields that we have constructed, all of them, each at a time. And I want to first convert the whole of this expression. The whole of this expression, I have magnified so that you can see. The whole of this expression is the one which is leading to those kind of concatenation. But we want the result to be a real number, a number that we can understand. So allow me now to introduce VAL, VAL function there. So I put an opening bracket. So just before DSUM, that is where I have typed VAL, open parentheses. And then at the end there, I have to close the parentheses. Okay. And then we say, okay. Then let's repeat that over and over. Let's repeat that over and over. So hoping I won't take long. VAL, I have introduced it just before DSUM and then close the bracket at the end. Activities revenue, I also do the same. Introduce VAL function just before DSUM, and then I'm opening a bracket and then remembering to close it at the end. Don't forget that. Right click to build amount spent. We are introducing what? VAL, open bracket, and then close it at the end of the whole statement. And then at the other expenses, we are repeating the same, and we are saying DSUM before DSUM, VAL function, and then closing the function at the end. Okay. Then we go again, build that net revenue. Net revenue now should be having numbers, because we have already converted those values to numbers. But let's see the behavior. We might messed up somewhere, I don't know. Yeah, so there we are. Amount spent in our clubs is too high, but giving us now that net revenue of a negative amount. But you can see, at least I'm happy that the first two are behaving well. But we have got these other guys who have decided to misbehave. Error. Now, what is the cause of this error? This error is based on Microsoft Access trying to evaluate null values, empty results. There are some clubs here who have not engaged themselves in any activity. Among these items, there might be an activity which they have not engaged in. So to trap the null error, just like we have seen the usefulness of the VAL function, here we also need to know there is also the NZ function. NZ function is used to take care of what we call the null error. So again, to design a view, we want to handle any occurrence of a null value. The computer should treat it as a zero. So therefore, what I'll do, I'm going to, where should it have been placed? It should be coming between after the VAL function. That's where I want to introduce, just before DSUM, that's where I want to introduce the NZ function. So you just see, clearly where I'm introducing it at. You see here, VAL, opening bracket. So I have put now NZ just before the DSUM. So NZ expects a variant. A variant can be text, can be number. And then what do we show in case this variant becomes null? So at the end of, just before the last closing bracket there, I want to put a comma and I want to tell it value if null, put it as a 0. Put it as a 0. Then remember there is an additional bracket that we need to add there. And then we say, okay, I have over magnified just because I take care of you. I want to show you exactly where we are. So I repeat the same, guys, very fast. Build and introduce NZ function just before DSUM, NZ there, open bracket. Go to just before the closing bracket, in between the two brackets that we have at the end, put a comma, put a 0, and put a closing bracket, and then say okay, and then go to activities revenue, build, repeat the same procedure before the keyword DSUM, put the keyword NZ, open bracket, between the two closing brackets, put the cursor in between, put a comma, put a 0, and then put a closing bracket there, and then go to amount spent, repeat the same, put NZ there, open brackets, and then between the two brackets at the end, put a comma, put a 0, put a closing bracket. Okay, we are almost done. We go to other expenses, build, repeat the same procedure, introduce NZ before DSUM, open bracket, and then between the two closing brackets, put a comma, put a 0, put a closing bracket. Okay, now the net revenue, we already have it correct. And let's see now the behavior. Yeah, I am expecting now there should be calculations already done. So you can see whenever there is an empty space, because like now these spaces where we have other expenses is where the computer was showing us null values. But instead of it now showing us the null values, it's now showing us a 0, which is now a number that can be considered mathematically. Okay, guys, now we are moving on very well. Sorry for the long video, but we are just about to be done. So out of the okay, let me switch to the project now, to the project paper, so that we see this paragraph which says, out of the total revenue generated from the club's activities and registration fees, we have calculated the net revenue. So net revenue, now we are anticipating 50% is allocated to supporting the club's ongoing activities. Then 30% is allocated to organizing the club's annual parties or outings outside the school, and then the balance is saved. So we want to work out the 50%, which is allocated for club's ongoing activities, and 30% is allocated for organizing the club's annual parties. Okay, so note it somewhere, somebody to remind me, what have we said? 50% club's ongoing activities and 30% annual parties, and then the rest is saved. All right, so we go back to our query now. Remember to save the changes. Remember to save the changes, because we want ideally now to use the net revenue here to work out 50%. 50% is allocated to supporting clubs activities. So we go to build in a new column, open, invoke the builder, and that becomes very easy. You either say 50% by putting the 50% symbol times net revenue and then you say okay, 50% of net revenue, you say okay. So you can note that you omitted an operand or operator, you entered an invalid character. So in Microsoft Access, avoid using the percent symbol for performing calculations. Otherwise, how do you handle it? 50%, mathematically, 50% is normally equal to 0.5. So you just type 0.5, create, work it as a fraction, 0.5, and then call it, this is the amount which is going to where? I'm reading from my paper, is allocated for clubs ongoing activities. Clubs, support to clubs activities. Now, I want us to brainstorm on an issue here based on the reality that we have on the ground. We have all our clubs for now, because mathematically I know we have just entered figures, imaginary figures, and now the scenario we are in is that every club has got a negative revenue except one. Very good, because we have an example here which is going to give us a result. So when you have negative amount and then you are being told, can you give this amount towards supporting these club activities, what will you give? You have already negative. Do you have anything to give? You don't have anything to give. So we need to do some consideration as we do this column here. We want to do some modifications to it such that whenever the net revenue is negative, there is nothing to support to club activities. Okay, and that one, guys, takes us into yet another function that we use in Microsoft Access, and it's called the if function. What? The if function. The if function. So the expression which is working out how much we should put to support other clubs activities, it's the highlighted part there. So before we do the calculation, we want to evaluate, is the net revenue negative? So how do we achieve that? IF, the if function. Let me use capital letters. I said there's no harm. It's not case sensitive, although the computer will later convert for us. What expression are we evaluating? We are evaluating from the middle column, we are evaluating net revenue, whether net revenue is less than, how do you test whether a number is negative? Whether it is less than a 0, whether it's less than a 0. So that's the evaluation part, the expression to be evaluated. If it is true that we are dealing with net revenue which is negative, then what you do, you have nothing to allocate for supporting clubs. So I put a 0. A 0 is what we shall put as the amount we are using to spend, to support other clubs activities. But if the amount is positive, then let the computer carry on and do the calculation there by saying 50% times net revenue. Okay, so that's the if statement, the if function, and that is very critical. You should use it there. Okay, so once again, I'm apologizing for having a very, very lengthy video. Okay, so now let's go to the last columns here. Has it achieved? Yes. Any place where we have got negative revenue, we are allocating 0 to support other club activities. But where we have a positive value, we have some amount that we are allocating 50%. Like now 50% of 4,200, 2,100 has been put into reserve to support club activities. So that's the same thing that we are going to repeat here for the 30%, which is meant to be allocated for ongoing clubs parties. Bash. Okay? How do we handle bash issues? So I right click again, build very fast, build, and I build. Then I will start now with the if. Now everybody now understands where we are using the if. We want to test whether net revenue is less than 0. If it is so, we are returning a 0. If it's not, then we are saying 0.3, which is 30%. You multiply that with the net revenue. Net revenue, I'm just double clicking from the middle column. Then we say this is amount for party amount. Oh yes, oh yeah. Now I'm so glad that I'm coming to the end of this lengthy video, because we now have the amount that we want for party. And then the remainder, how do we calculate the remainder? The remainder is just 20% for saving. The same scenario. Saving, the amount to be saved. You build again in a new column. And then we are going to use the if function. If what? If net revenue is less than 0, then we are saving 0. Otherwise, if it's not negative, then we are saving 0.2. You know, the remainder is 20% times net revenue. And then you say, okay. And then what is this? Savings. I am saying now, kwa heri kwa sasa. The query has already been constructed, and that is now how we allocate these amounts. Would you give me just a minute? We work out the 70% of the allocated. Just give me that 1 minute before, instead of us doing it in another video. Let's do it here about this. The school supports. The school supports annual parties or outings by contributing 70% of the amount allocated for the activity or event. In this case, the activity for this matter is the party. Or what am I understanding? The school supports clubs annual parties or outings by contributing 70% of the amount allocated for the activity or event. We don't have outings, but we have parties. We have already taken care of our party, and therefore I just go back to the design, and I want to save this query. Control S to update the changes, and then in a brand new column now, I'm going to build yet once again how much the school should chip in. How much should the school should chip in? So if double I, if the party amount is not equal to 0, if the party amount is not equal to 0 this time, then what do we want? We want the school to chip in 0.7 times the party amount, the amount we had allocated for the party. We want the school to chip in 70% of what we are going to spend as party amount. Then otherwise, if we had no money, does it mean the school now should be the one to give us the money? No, we should get our own money first, and then the school gives us the rest. So you can see, just pause and then check the formula that we have up there, and then now school funding. Then we call it school funding. And has it worked? Yeah, should work. Why should it not? It should work. The school funding Getting too large. The query is becoming extra large. I hope it is. Let me zoom out, so that you are able to see my very last column. Because of the calculations, you'll also notice that it becomes slightly sluggish. But if you have a super powerful CPU, then it should be easy for you to maneuver. So this is the amount that the school is giving us. We have done all the calculations that are required in this project. Therefore, we just clap for yourselves. And I salute you for holding on, holding your horse tightly until 1 hour and a few minutes are over. God bless you. Shalom. Try it out, and we are done. Almost done in video number 10. God bless you so much.